miss this extraordinary opportunity. The world-famous Shenyun dancers bring classic Chinese dance to life. On stage at the Kennedy Center January 19th through the 24th. Come experience the brilliant choreography, gorgeous costumes, breathtaking backdrops, and unforgettable music. Hurry and get your tickets now at the Kennedy Center box office or at shenyunperformingarts.org.
I'm Kate.
I'm Ebong.
And I'm Sonya.
And today we are dishing with you from Wisdom, located at 1453 Pennsylvania Avenue, Southeast.
And our guest is Garret Graff, who is the editor-in-chief at Washingtonian.com. Actually, Washingtonian Magazine, excuse me.
Washingtonian
and the website.
And the website. So we want to talk about
That's right, I was bifurcating the two because I know that you guys are doing a lot of things with that. So,
yeah.
You recently joined as editor-in-chief, I believe. And what do you think, what do you see for Washington actually in the magazine space? Because I know there are a lot of other magazines out there, even
yes,
papers
there's only
who are
one
going down.
Washington.
There's only one out there. But ideally for you guys, I've always looked at you as, as a primary magazine because I see you in supermarkets.
Yep. So I took over as editor of the magazine last summer. I've been at the magazine, though, for about 4.5 years now. And Washingtonian has this incredible 45-year history in the city. I'm just the third editor of the magazine in the magazine's history. And so we're a magazine that has just tremendous sense of institutional memory and where the city has come from and where the city is going. Our January issue, the issue that's on newsstands right now, is actually our 100 Very Best Restaurants issue. It's our biggest issue annually. But what's funny about it is when you sort of talk about Washington and the evolution of the city and the evolution of our magazine, this is an issue that started off decades ago as the 25 best restaurants in Washington. Because at the time, there were only 25 good restaurants in Washington. And then over time, it gradually expanded to be the 50 best restaurants. Then it went to 75 best restaurants, and now, for the last decade or 15 years, we've been at the 100 very best restaurants. Now, we have, we counted up at one point about a year and a half ago, we have about 680 restaurants that we track over the course of a year. That we try to eat at, that we try to know what's going on.
But they're constantly changing.
They're constantly changing, but what's so much fun about an issue like this for us is where you used to be talking about 3 restaurants all within 2 blocks of the White House. Now, we have restaurants that stretch. We have restaurants that stretch all the way from Annapolis to Fredericksburg.
Oh, okay, wow. That's even farther than I was thinking. I don't cross bridges that often.
Without a passport.
Well, but what I love about the magazine is that you all do have a plan, and especially since they brought you on because you wear a lot of hats, they have a plan for this new media, this online onslaught, I'll call it. And we kind of want to hear from your point of view what that is, because this is the magazine that has roots here in Washington, and everyone's kind of wondering what's happening. So what's the plan?
We have seen, we've really only, I say, taken the web seriously in the last 5 years. We've really only sort of figured out what we want to be doing with the internet and how to use it. But we, in the middle of last year, hit a real turning point for the magazine, where we now have as many readers each month online as we do in the print magazine. We have about 400,000 monthly print readers, and we have about 400,000 monthly web readers. What's interesting about that is that we have about only 100,000 people who overlap, who know us as both a web platform and as a print magazine. And people come to our website every day, Washingtonian.com, mostly for the same things that they turn to the print magazine for. Reviews of restaurants, reviews of bars, and with very specific things in mind. We have seen tremendous growth on our Twitter account and our Facebook account, with actually people writing in and saying, my parents are in town this weekend, can you recommend a great Italian place in DuPont? Or, I want to take my girlfriend out Saturday night in Alexandria, what's your recommendation for a place that's not too expensive? And that it's been fun for us to begin to have a more regular conversation with our readers and to enable them to get a little more personal with us, and so that it's not just our list of the 100 very best as we think, it's also, what's the best for you.
Now, there was a big brouhaha when you first came on board. Oh, he's so young, oh my gosh,
what's wrong with that?
No, that's what I want to know, is what personally, when you were hearing all these things, because I know Do you Google yourself? As a newsman?
Of course not.
No, okay, well, you were hearing these things, so I'm sure. And how did that make you feel? And did it give you any sort of extra feeling of like, man, I'm going to show those people? And if so, what have you instigated to start really making a different place for Washingtonians?
I don't think it is that I had quite that reaction to it. What we sort of have been talking about in the magazine is that Washington as a city has undergone such changes. I mean, again, going back to the expansion of the number of restaurants, but that you've seen sort of this growth of Washington in the last, particularly I would say 2 to 3 year period, that it is vastly cooler than people have given us credit for.
And do you attribute that to any one thing? Do you think that that is politically, that has a political orientation, or not at all? Do you think it's just the people here? I think it's entirely
unrelated to politics.
I agree.
I think it has everything to do with the Verizon Center. I mean,
really?
we just lost Abe Pollin in the last,
That whole thing? Or?
Yeah, I think that the rise of the Verizon Center, the rise of that area has sort of given Washington a downtown heart in a way that it didn't have before.
I agree with you, though. I completely agree with you, because if you think about it, there's nowhere else downtown in D.C., aside from Georgetown, that we can attribute to downtown. And you go to Chinatown, there's actually been an explosion.
But I think it also offers other areas the opportunity to say, okay, that's what it used to look like, and this is what it looks like now. We can do that for our part of the city, too.
Now, when you get into talking about politics, one of the interesting things that we have seen, certainly in the last year, is that we have a president now who is of Washington in a way that George W. Bush never was.
True.
Leaving aside the politics, Barack Obama went out to dinner in Washington more in his first 6 months than George W. Bush did in 8 years. So what we're seeing is, I think, a more attention paid to some of the natural evolutions that have happened in Washington, because we have a president who highlights them in a way that we had not seen the previous president do.
And in accordance with that, with the change, I would also say with you coming on, you brought probably new ideas, because you said there's only been 2 other editors-in-chief in the last 45 years, besides yourself being a new one. So you coming in, would you agree that you coming in would bring a lot more, I'd say, credence to technology in the publication and the media and marketing space?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm the first editor of the magazine who's ever had a Facebook page, who's ever had a Twitter account. I mean, sort of the things that we now use as key avenues to talk with our readers and to learn about the city. Because what we also do a lot with our Twitter account or with our Facebook page is we'll post questions for readers and say, for instance, this is Restaurant Week this week in January, and so we'll be asking our readers on Twitter and on Facebook, what's going well for Restaurant Week, what reviews do you have that you want to share with other people?
Do you use those avenues for story ideas? I mean,
Absolutely.
How do you find out what's going on and cool and hip in the city to tell people about?
Well, partially we just have a staff that's their sole job. I mean, we have 3 full-time food critics whose only job over the course of the year is to eat out a whole lot, which sounds,
I would like to have that job.
Well, which sounds more fun until you get towards the end of the year where you're eating 5, 6, 7 meals a day.
I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. Totally fine.
You guys are a resource, though. If you think about it, honestly, I made the joke earlier about the supermarket, you guys being supermarkets. I honestly, when I first moved down here, you were one of the first magazines I picked up because of that. And you guys were a guide for me as to what to do in Washington. I was living in Gaithersburg, Maryland.
Yeah.
I didn't know anything about D.C. besides that it was a capital.
Yeah.
And so you provided so many things, whether it's nightlife, food, entertainment, what have you. So.
And one of the things that you're touching on is something else that we've seen at the magazine that has transformed this region more than anything, which is just the expansion of the definition of a Washingtonian.
What do you think? What do you think it means to be a Washingtonian?
Well, and one of the things that we sort of always talk about is, here in Washington, we'll draw the division. I'm from Reston, I'm from Gaithersburg, I'm from, Woodley Park, which is where I live. But at the same time, what we sort of talk about are the people, when you're asked in London or in Paris or in Seattle even, where you're from, no one says, oh, I'm from Reston or I'm from Gaithersburg. You say, I'm from Washington. And so that's the the spirit that we speak to, the people who identify as a Washingtonian even if they're not actually a resident of the district.
Well, I can't wait to check out the latest issue.
I read it. I was reading it last night.
Well,
it really was. Were the makeovers you guys had? That was brilliant.
You've shown us that DC certainly has a lot on its plate, and we hope that you continue to watch us to see everything that is on that plate. There's lots of hot dish and more dish coming up all the time. Thanks for watching this episode of The District Dish.